She didn't expect the cold to hurt this much. Madeline Rhodes stood just outside the sliding doors of New York Presbyterian Hospital, her newborn wrapped in the thin cotton blanket they'd handed her only minutes earlier. Snow drifted under the street lamp, settling on her hair, melting against her exhausted skin. She had barely taken her first step out when the doors hissed shut behind her, locking her out as if she were a stranger. She wasn't supposed to be alone. She wasn't supposed to be standing in freezing air with her body still trembling from labor. Derek had promised he'd be there. He had sworn he'd take her home, hold their baby, fix everything. But his last text sent while she was pushing through the pain was still glowing on her cracked phone screen. "This isn't my problem anymore. Handle your own mess." The words burned hotter than the icy wind slicing across her cheeks. Madeline clutched the baby closer, her arms weak, her stitches throbbing. Every breath felt like glass inside her chest. She tried to steady herself against the metal railing, but her knees buckled with exhaustion. For a moment, she thought she might collapse right there on the hospital curb. Cars zoomed past, their headlights flashing across her frightened eyes. Not a single one slowed down. To everyone else, she was invisible, just another woman life had chewed up and spit out onto a sidewalk in Manhattan. "Please," she whispered into the night, not sure who she was begging. God? Fate? Anyone? Her vision blurred. The world tilted. Then, through the swirl of snow, a long black limousine rolled to a stop in front of her. The kind of car she'd only ever seen on Fifth Avenue or in movies. The window glided down, revealing a man whose face she knew but never expected to see again. "Madeline?" His deep voice cut through the storm. "What happened to you?" Her breath caught, and that was the moment her entire fate shifted, though she had no idea what waited next. Madeline Rhodes had never imagined her life would narrow into a single moment of cold pavement, a newborn in her arms, and a man she once trusted disappearing like smoke. But long before the hospital doors closed on her, Madeline had been a woman who believed sometimes too much in the goodness of others. She grew up in a quiet neighborhood in Rochester, New York, a small rented house, a mother who worked double shifts, a childhood built on simple rules: be kind, work hard, don't expect much. When her parents passed within 2 years of each other, she learned a harsher rule: sometimes life takes without asking. She moved to Manhattan for a fresh start, scraping together enough to enroll in a radiology tech program. She loved the work. The rhythm of the machines, the calmness of helping frightened patients, the soft hum of the hospital corridors. People trusted her. Patients thanked her. For the first time, she felt she mattered. Then came Derek Langford. He walked into her life wearing expensive cologne, a smile too polished, and clothes that looked ripped straight from a designer window on Fifth Avenue. He called her Maddie like he owned the nickname, took her to rooftop bars she couldn't afford, told her she deserved more than her quiet little world. And she believed him. He told her he loved her before she was ready. He moved into her tiny apartment without asking. He started borrowing money just until the next paycheck, then using her credit card when she wasn't looking. Still, every time she doubted him, he knew exactly what to say to silence her instincts. "You worry too much, babe. I've got us." When Madeline found out she was pregnant, she cried from fear and hope. Maybe this would finally make Derek grow into the man she kept imagining he could be. But Derek panicked. His charm cracked. He started staying out late, coming home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. He blamed her for his stress, for the baby, for ruining his life. Yet Madeline held on, telling herself things would get better after the birth. They didn't. The week before her due date, her landlord gave notice Derek had gambled the rent money away. She tried calling him, begging him to come to the hospital when her contractions started. He never answered. And when he finally did, he ended their relationship with one cruel message. Still, even in the darkest moment, Madeline had one memory that burned like a small, stubborn flame. A late-night emergency a year ago. A man brought in after a minor car accident, disoriented, pale, breathing unevenly. Everyone was busy with a trauma case, so she sat with him, held his hand, talked him through the panic. She never even learned his name. She only remembered the way he looked at her with quiet gratitude, as if she had given him something far more precious than medical help. She thought she'd never see him again. Until the limousine window rolled down. Until that same pair of steady, shaken eyes found hers in the snow. "Madeline," he said again, stepping out into the storm. Her heart stuttered, because the man she had once saved had returned at the exact moment she needed saving. And he wasn't just any man, he was Elias Whitmore, one of the most powerful billionaires in Manhattan. The heat inside the limousine felt almost unreal after the bite of the winter storm. Madeline sank into the leather seat, her newborn resting against her chest, while the city lights of Manhattan streaked past the tinted windows like blurred constellations. She had only ever seen cars like this glide along Fifth Avenue, polished, sleek, impossibly luxurious. Sitting inside one now felt like stepping into a world she had no right to enter. Elias Whitmore sat across from her, his expression steady but shadowed with concern. He didn't crowd her, didn't demand explanations. He simply nodded to the driver and said, "Park Avenue." Now, Park Avenue. The name alone carried weight, a world of penthouses with marble floors, doormen in tailored uniforms, and chandeliers worth more than her entire life savings. It wasn't a place for someone like her. Not a woman who had just been thrown out of a hospital with nowhere to go and no one to call. Yet here she was, heading straight toward it. The limousine turned, passing the glowing storefronts on Madison Avenue, the winter decorations twinkling across the sidewalks. Madeline watched through fogged glass as life continued outside, couples laughing beneath scarves, shoppers carrying glossy bags, the rich stepping out of Mercedes and Bentleys into warm lobbies. Their world kept moving, untouched, unaware of the girl inside the limousine who felt like she was unraveling. Her apartment, if she could still call it that, had been locked earlier that week when the landlord changed the code. She had nowhere to return to, no crib for her baby, not even a coat thick enough to survive a New York winter night. Elias's voice pulled her back. "You're safe now, Madeline." She swallowed hard. How could he say that so easily? He didn't know about Derek's debts. He didn't know the hospital had forced her to sign questionable discharge papers. He didn't know she had nothing, not family, not savings, not a single lifeline left. "You don't have to take me anywhere special," she said softly, staring at her trembling fingers. "Just drop me off at a shelter or something. I don't want to be a burden." The silence that followed was warm, not cold. "Madeline," Elias said quietly, "you saved my life. Tonight, I'm simply returning the kindness you showed me when you thought no one was watching." Her chest tightened. No one had spoken to her with that much sincerity in years. The limousine slowed as towering residential buildings came into view. Sleek stone facades, glowing lobbies, uniformed doormen standing like sentries. When they stopped in front of one, she stared at the golden lettering above the entrance, the Whitmore Residences. This is your building?" she whispered. Elias nodded once. "I want you somewhere warm, somewhere safe, you and the baby." Her breath shook. The marble entrance alone looked like it cost more than everything she owned combined. A doorman rushed forward with an umbrella. Another opened the glass doors, greeting Elias with a respectful bow. Madeline hesitated at the threshold. She wasn't just stepping into a building, she was stepping into a world that didn't belong to her. A world that could swallow her whole if she wasn't careful. Elias extended a hand. "Come inside, Madeline, please." She took a single, unsteady step. And the moment she crossed that door, her life and her secrets followed closely behind her, waiting to collide with a truth she wasn't ready to face. Derek Langford always believed he deserved more money, more attention, more admiration than the world ever seemed willing to give him. Even now, sitting in a dim midtown lounge lit by blue neon and overpriced ambition, he smirked at his reflection in the mirror behind the bar. He ran a hand through his carefully styled hair, adjusted the collar of his imported shirt, and lifted a whiskey glass he had no business affording. He wasn't thinking about Madeline. He wasn't thinking about the baby she had delivered less than 2 hours ago. He wasn't thinking about the fact that he'd left her alone in a hospital hallway with contractions ripping through her body. To Derek, responsibility was something for other people. He had bigger plans, plans that included a wealthy client he'd been chasing for months. A client whose approval could launch him from store manager to executive material. A client who attended the same lounges, drank the same aged liquor, played in the same shallow social pool Derek desperately wanted to belong to. "You're single now, right?" a woman beside him asked, twirling her hair, her perfume sharp and sugary. He grinned. "Officially? Yeah. I finally cut loose some dead weight. Thank you for watching." The State Gevro. The woman laughed. not knowing she was laughing at a broken girl holding a newborn in the freezing cold. Derek tapped his phone. Dozens of unread messages from creditors, landlords, and even a suspicious email about fraudulent credit activity. He ignored them all. He had become a master at pretending problems didn't exist. If he ignored a fire long enough, maybe it would burn out on its own. Or so he believed. But the message from an unknown number caught his attention. Your past is catching up to you. He blinked. Spam? A debt collector? A prank? He deleted it without a second thought. A man in a tailored navy suit entered the lounge, drawing attention instantly. Derek straightened his posture, recognizing him. Blake Morton, a mid-level investor with connections to the Whitmore family, the kind of man Derek needed on his side. Opportunity. Derek approached him with the confidence of someone who had done nothing wrong. Blake, good to see you again, he said, extending a hand. Blake's expression didn't completely soften, but he shook it anyway. Langford, didn't know you still hung around here. Just staying in the loop, Derek said smoothly. You know how it is. Blake sipped his drink. I heard about your situation. Rough break with your girlfriend, huh? Derek forced a laugh. It was mutual. She wasn't ambitious enough. Blake raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. You sure that's how it went? Something about Blake's tone pricked Derek's nerves. What have you heard? Derek asked, the smile fading a fraction. Nothing, Blake said casually. Just make sure you're keeping your affairs clean. Whitmore Industries is tightening their vetting. Anyone with messy history is getting flagged. The blood drained from Derek's face. Whitmore? As in Elias Whitmore, the billionaire? Why would his name come up now? Blake clapped him on the shoulder. If you've got skeletons, Langford, now's the time to bury them. He walked away, leaving Derek standing alone, pulse pounding. He didn't know the limousine had already stopped in front of a hospital. He didn't know Elias Whitmore had already found Madeline. He didn't know the past he thought he escaped had finally found him. And the truth waiting to surface would destroy the life he was so sure he deserved. Madeline never imagined the moments after childbirth could feel this brutal. Her body ached in ways she didn't have words, for an ache that ran deeper than stitches or exhaustion. It was the kind that lived in the chest, in the spaces between breaths. The kind born from betrayal. Inside the gleaming marble lobby of the Whitmore residences, she stood trembling, still wrapped in a hospital gown beneath the oversized coat Elias had draped over her shoulders. Crystal pendant lights hung above her like frozen stars, reflecting off polished floors and glass-paneled walls. Everything felt too bright, too clean, too far from the life she knew. The doorman glanced at her politely, but their eyes widened with subtle confusion. Who was this fragile woman being ushered into one of the most guarded towers in Manhattan, carrying a newborn and looking like she had walked out of a disaster? Elias spoke calmly to them. She's with me. Prepare the private elevator. His voice held a level of quiet authority that left no room for questions. Still, Madeline shrunk into herself. She didn't belong here. She felt painfully out of place, like a stain on pristine marble. As they waited, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Her hands shook as she pulled it out, half of her still foolishly hoping Derek had changed his mind, that he'd come back for her. Instead, the screen displayed a message from an unknown number. You were a mistake. Don't contact me again. Her breath cracked. The words blurred as fresh tears filled her eyes. She wanted to scream. She wanted to disappear. But all she could do was hold her baby tighter. The elevator chimed. Elias stepped closer. Madeline, you don't owe him your pain. She wiped her cheek quickly, ashamed he'd seen her cry. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to hold it together. You don't need to apologize, he said softly. Not tonight. As the elevator ascended, the city unfolded beneath them through the glass shaft, Manhattan's skyline glittering like a field of diamonds. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it reminded her how small she was compared to the world outside, how easy it was to be forgotten. When the doors opened on the penthouse floor, she gasped. The space stretched outward like a dream floor-to-ceiling windows, revealing the river, soft golden lighting, minimalist elegance balanced with warmth. It looked like something from the pages of Architectural Digest. This is temporary, she whispered, overwhelmed. I don't belong here. And offer. Elias turned toward her, expression firm yet gentle. Madeline, you were standing alone in the snow with a newborn. You belong somewhere safe. Let me give you that, at least. But why? she asked, voice cracking. Why help someone like me? His eyes softened. Because once, when I was at my lowest, you didn't walk away. Madeline swallowed hard, her heart trembling. But before she could respond, the penthouse intercom buzzed sharply, an urgent tone that made Elias's brows narrow. The doorman's voice came through, tense and low. Mr. Whitmore, someone is downstairs, demanding to see Miss Rhodes. Madeline's blood turned to ice. She clutched her baby, breath catching. Elias met her eyes. Do you know who it is? She nodded, dread filling her. Because only one person would show up after abandoning her. Derek had found out where she was far sooner than she ever expected. Madeline felt her stomach drop as the doorman's voice echoed through the penthouse. Derek was downstairs. The same man who had left her bleeding and crying alone in a hospital room. The same man who had told her their baby was a mistake. The same man who had used her, drained her, and discarded her like yesterday's trash. Her knees wobbled, and she clutched the arm of the nearest sofa for support. I can't see him, she whispered, her throat tightening. Not like this. Not after everything. I am. Elias moved closer, not touching her, but creating a protective space around her. His presence steadied the air. You don't have to, he said calmly. He won't come up unless you want him to. I'll make sure of it. Madeline shook her head. He shouldn't even be here. How did he find me? There was only one answer. Derek was panicking. Something must have happened. Something big enough to send him running straight to the woman he once threw away. Her heart hammered painfully. For a moment, the room felt like it was spinning. She sank onto the sofa, holding her newborn close as fresh tears welled in her eyes. The baby whimpered, sensing her distress. I'm sorry, she whispered to the tiny face pressed against her chest. I'm so sorry. She felt like she was unraveling, every ounce of strength she'd held on to the past few hours dissolving. She had survived childbirth alone, survived the cold, survived being abandoned. But the emotional weight of it all, the humiliation, the loss, the fear, it finally crashed over her like a wave. Madeline covered her face with one hand, shoulders shaking. I tried so hard, she cried softly. I tried to make everything work. I tried to believe he'd change. I tried to be enough. Elias knelt down in front of her, not towering over her, not pitying her, simply meeting her at eye level. You were more than enough, he said. You just gave your heart to someone who didn't deserve it. His words didn't fix the pain, but they wrapped around her like a warm blanket, steady, grounding, real. The baby began crying louder, forcing Madeline to focus. She inhaled shakily and cradled him closer, rocking gently. I can't fall apart, she whispered. He needs me. Elias nodded. And you need support. Let me handle Derek. No, Madeline said quickly, fear tightening her chest again. If he's here, it's because something happened. He doesn't show up unless he wants something. She wasn't wrong. Derek only came when he wanted money, or favors, or someone to clean up his mess. A sinking dread settled in her stomach. What if he's here to threaten me, or accuse me, or worse? Elias's expression hardened, a protective edge emerging beneath his calm exterior. He won't touch you. Not in this building. Not in my presence. It's great, Baud. The conviction in his voice made her breath hitch. She brushed a trembling hand over her baby's cheek. I don't think I can face him, she whispered. Not tonight. Not after everything. You don't have to, Elias repeated gently. I'll go down. I'll find out why he's here. You stay with your son. Madeline nodded slowly, exhaustion washing over her like a tide she could no longer fight. The thought of Derek standing outside the building made her skin crawl, but the thought of Elias confronting him brought a flicker of safety. Elias stood, giving her one last reassuring look before heading toward the private elevator. Madeline held her breath as he disappeared inside. Because deep down, she knew one thing. Whatever Derek wanted, it wasn't going to be simple. And it definitely wasn't going to be good. The elevator doors closed behind Elias with a muted click, leaving Madeline alone in the quiet penthouse. She pressed her cheek against her newborn's soft head, inhaling his warmth, trying to keep her spiraling thoughts from swallowing her whole. Derek was downstairs. Derek, who never showed up unless he wanted something. Derek, who had thrown her into the cold both literally and emotionally. She swallowed hard, pacing slowly across the polished floor. What could he possibly want now? Downstairs, Elias stepped out of the elevator into the lobby. The warmth of the penthouse vanished instantly, replaced with the cool draft from the building's entrance. Standing near the front desk was Derek Langford, rumpled, sweaty, trying and failing to look confident. Derek noticed Elias approaching and straightened, adjusting the cheap watch on his wrist as if it were a Rolex. "You must be Whitmore," he said, smirking. "I'm here for Madeline." "There's no end of fest." Elias didn't blink. "She won't be seeing you." Derek scoffed. "That's funny. Really funny. You think you can just decide that?" He leaned forward, voice dropping. "She's the mother of my kid. I have rights." "You forfeited those rights the moment you abandoned her in a hospital hallway," Elias replied, tone flat and cold. For a moment, Derek's facade slipped, his jaw clenched. Then he forced a laugh. "Look, man, I just came to talk. Clear the air. She's emotional. You know how women get." Elias stepped closer, and Derek's words stumbled to a halt. "You will not speak about her that way," Elias said quietly, the kind of quiet that carried sharp edges. "Not here, not ever." Derek swallowed, his confidence wavering. "Fine, whatever. I just need to see her, and I need her to sign something for me." "Sign what?" Derek hesitated, but only for a moment. He pulled a folded document from his jacket pocket and tapped it with 2 fingers. "Just some financial stuff," he said. "Nothing big, just cleanup. You know how it is." Elias took the paper from him, unfolding it. His expression darkened instantly. "You forged her signature," Elias said. It wasn't a question. Derek's face paled. "It's not like that. She owes me, and she needs to take responsibility for the debt." "You took out the debt," Elias cut in. "In her name." Derek's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. "You committed fraud," Elias continued, his voice low with disgust. "And now you're trying to trap her into taking the fall." Derek's voice rose, desperate. "If she doesn't sign, I'm ruined. My job, my credit, my future, everything goes down." "You don't get it. I'm the one drowning." Elias folded the paper carefully, precisely. "Madeline is the one drowning," he said. "You pushed her in." Derek took a step forward, panic flashing in his eyes. "Let me see her, Whitmore. I'm warning you, if she doesn't fix this, I swear." "You'll what?" Elias asked softly. Derek faltered. Everyone in the lobby was watching him now. He tugged at his jacket, trying to restore dignity he no longer had. "I'm not leaving without her," Derek muttered. "You can't keep me out." Elias didn't move. He didn't raise his voice. He simply said one sentence that made Derek freeze where he stood. "You already lost her. If you have section subordin, is forens." Before Derek could respond, the private elevator chimed behind Elias, and Madeline's trembling silhouette appeared at the doorway. She had come down, and what she heard next would shatter the fragile pieces of her heart all over again. Madeline's legs felt like they were made of sand as she stepped out of the private elevator and into the lobby. Her baby was asleep against her shoulder, unaware of the storm swirling between the 2 men facing each other. Derek froze the moment he saw her. The arrogant tilt in his posture vanished. His eyes darted to the baby, then back to her face, calculating, panicked, desperate. "Maddie," he breathed, plastering on a smile that had fooled her once but would never fool her again. "I came to take you home." "Home?" The word tasted poisonous. Madeline held her son tighter. "We don't have a home, Derek. You made sure of that." Derek's expression twitched. "Come on, babe. Don't be dramatic. I just said some things. You know how stress gets." "No." Her voice cracked through the air like glass. "You abandoned me while I was in labor. You blocked my number. You left me outside in the snow." Derek blinked rapidly, glancing around as if worried someone might have heard. "Oh, come on, Madeline. Don't embarrass yourself. Let's just fix things. Sign the papers, and I'll take care of everything." "There is nothing left to fix," she whispered. Then Elias stepped slightly forward, not touching her, but aligning himself beside her like a shield. "She doesn't owe you anything," he said. "And she isn't signing." Derek's jaw clenched. "Stay out of this, Whitmore. You don't know her like I do." "That may be true," Elias replied calmly, "but I know exactly what you are." The tension sharpened in the room. Madeline suddenly felt the exhaustion she'd been carrying for months, years, maybe settle like a stone in her chest. She was done. Done apologizing. Done shrinking. Done being afraid. With a trembling breath, she straightened her spine. "I'm not signing any more papers you dragged me into. I'm not covering your debts. I'm not your lifeline. Derek's mask slipped completely. Panic flashed openly now. Madeline, if you don't sign, I could lose my job. You should have thought about that before forging my name, she said quietly. Her voice didn't shake this time. His eyes widened. He hadn't expected her to know. Elias held up the document Derek had brought. It's over, Langford. You crossed a line you can't come back from. Derek's veneer cracked, frustration spilling into anger. You think you're better than me? You think money makes you a hero? She's nothing without me. Madeline felt the words hit her like old bruises, but this time, they didn't sink as deep. This time, she saw the truth behind them. Derek needed her, not emotionally, not romantically. He needed her because she was the only person he could control. Not anymore. She lifted her chin. I may be nothing to you, Derek, but I'm not nothing to myself. Silence swept across the lobby, and then Elias placed a gentle hand at the small of her back, guiding her toward the waiting elevator. We're done here, Elias said firmly. Madeline stepped inside the elevator, her newborn against her chest, her heart pounding. Just before the doors closed, she saw Derek's expression twist from anger to fear to something darker. He wasn't walking away. He wasn't giving up. And the next move he made would be far more dangerous than anything he'd done before. When the elevator doors finally slid shut, Madeline let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her baby shifted softly against her chest, tiny fingers curling into her hospital gown as if trying to anchor her. Elias stood beside her in the quiet ascent, neither of them speaking. The tension from the confrontation downstairs lingered in the air like smoke, sharp, bitter, clinging. Are you okay? Elias asked gently. She nodded, though it wasn't entirely true. I will be. He gave her a look that said he didn't quite believe her, but respected her answer anyway. When they reached the penthouse again, the warmth felt almost unreal. She moved toward the window, staring out at the city lights. Manhattan sparkled like a sky made of diamonds, far removed from the life she'd lived just hours earlier. But the moment of calm didn't last. Because downstairs, Derek Langford wasn't leaving. He paced across the marble lobby, his breath coming fast and uneven. Every time he glanced at the elevator doors, his jaw tightened. His mind raced, not with regret, not with guilt, but with calculation. For years, he had coasted by manipulating people who were too kind or too quiet to fight back. Madeline had been his easiest target. He couldn't afford to lose her now. Not when the debt collectors were circling. Not when the fraudulent loan he'd taken in her name was nearing discovery. Not when his job was already hanging by a thread. His phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, the message made his heart stop. If the account isn't paid in full by Friday, the police get involved. Not a scam. Not a bluff. Real trouble. His throat tightened painfully. No, 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 no. He couldn't let this happen. If he went down, he'd drag everyone with him, including Madeline. He needed her signature. He needed her silence. And now, she was tucked safely behind the guarded walls of Elias Whitmore's penthouse. That's what terrified him most. Because Derek knew exactly who Elias Whitmore was. Everyone in New York's financial sphere did. A man with power, reach, influence. A man Derek had openly mocked in an email rant during a drunken night months ago, an email Derek had prayed would stay buried. But if Whitmore saw that email, if Whitmore connected him to the forged documents, his career wouldn't just implode, it would vanish. The doorman approached cautiously. Sir, if you're not a resident or an approved guest, I must ask you to leave. Derek forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Just waiting on someone. The doorman didn't budge. Sir, please step outside. Derek's smile vanished. Fine, he snapped. Then quietly, but I'm not done. Outside, the cold night bit into his skin. He shoved his hands into his pockets, pacing under the awning. His eyes drifted upward toward the penthouse windows, glowing softly against the skyline. Inside that warm apartment, Madeline was safe. Protected. Supported. And Derek hated it. This isn't over, Maddie, he muttered under his breath. You owe me. You still owe me. If you don't freshen Obat. Above him, the lights on the penthouse dimmed slightly, a sign someone had moved into the living room. A shadow passed across the window. And in that moment, Derek realized something chilling. He wasn't just fighting Madeline anymore. He was going up against Elias Whitmore, and that battle could destroy him completely. The apartment was silent, except for the soft hum of the heating system and the gentle breaths of the newborn sleeping in the bassinet. Elias had rushed to assemble beside the sofa. Madeline sat curled up at the far end of the couch, knees drawn to her chest, her mind unraveling in slow, painful waves. The confrontation with Derek had drained the last thread of strength she had left. She wasn't crying anymore. This was worse. The numbness. Elias respected her silence, moving quietly around the penthouse. He brought her a warm cup of chamomile tea, placed a folded blanket nearby, dimmed the lights to a soft amber glow. Nothing invasive. Nothing demanding, just presence. "You don't have to talk," he said gently, "but you don't have to sit in the dark alone either." Madeline looked down at her hands. They were trembling again. She whispered, "I feel like everything is falling apart, all at once." "It's not," Elias said. "It just feels that way now." Her throat tightened. "I made so many mistakes. I trusted the wrong person. I ignored the signs, and now I've put my baby in danger." "You protected him the best you could with what you had," Elias replied. "That's not failure, that's strength." She shook her head. "Strength? I can't even stand up without feeling like the world is spinning. I'm homeless, I'm jobless, I have medical bills I can't pay. Derek ruined my credit, and I let him. I let him walk all over me." "You didn't let him," Elias corrected softly. "He manipulated you. There's a difference." Madeline inhaled shakily, staring out the tall windows overlooking the East River. The water reflected the moonlight like shards of silver, calm and steady, so unlike her life. "I don't even know who I am anymore," she said. "I used to believe in kindness, in helping people. I used to believe that doing the right thing mattered." She swallowed hard. "But Derek, he took everything, even the parts of myself I liked." Elias pulled a chair closer, sitting at eye level. "Then we'll get them back," he said simply. She blinked, startled by the certainty in his voice. He continued, "You survived abandonment, childbirth, financial abuse, and humiliation. And you're still sitting upright, still protecting your child, still trying to figure out the next step. That's not weakness, Madeline. That's someone rebuilding." Thanks for watching. The words cracked something open inside her, a place she'd locked away for too long. Her lower lip trembled. "I'm so tired, Elias." "I know." His voice softened, almost a whisper. "Let me help carry some of the weight." Something warm spread through her chest. Hope, maybe. Or the memory of what hope used to feel like. She leaned back slowly, letting the blanket settle over her. Her eyelids felt heavy. Exhaustion pulled at her bones. "Just stay for a little while? I don't want to fall asleep alone." Elias nodded. "I'll be right here." As Madeline finally drifted into a fragile, much-needed sleep, Elias watched her with a quiet protectiveness, a storm of emotions hidden beneath his calm exterior. Gratitude, concern, something deeper he wasn't ready to name. He wasn't aware that his phone, placed screen down on the table, began to buzz repeatedly. And he didn't see the caller ID, because someone from his past was about to pull him into a battle even more dangerous than Derek Langford. Elias didn't realize how long he had been sitting there until the soft morning light began to creep across the penthouse floors. Madeline slept curled on the couch, her newborn resting in a bassinet beside her, his tiny breaths forming the steadiest rhythm Elias had heard in days. He reached for his phone, intending to silence it, only to see the notifications flooding the screen. 6 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 2 messages marked urgent from someone he hadn't heard from in nearly a year. Victor Hall, former business partner, current enemy. Elias's jaw tightened. Victor only called when he wanted something, or when trouble he caused was about to spiral out of control. And trouble around Victor Hall always came with consequences. He stepped quietly into the hallway to listen to the first voicemail. "Elias, we need to talk. It's about the acquisition. There's an issue, and it involves a leak connected to your building." The message ended abruptly. The second voicemail was worse. "You need to get control of the situation. Someone's coming after you, after us, and if they get the wrong leverage, Whitmore Industries goes down." Elias shut his eyes, exhaling sharply. Of all weeks to reappear. Of all moments. He played the final voicemail. "I'm warning you, Elias. Someone already dug into your personal records. And they found a name. Thanks for watching." A pause. A woman. Madeline Rhodes. Every muscle in Elias's body went still. Madeline. How? She had nothing to do with Victor, nothing to do with corporate warfare. She had barely survived the night, and now her name was somehow dragged into the dirt of his past business dealings? He replayed the message, making sure he hadn't misheard. No, he hadn't. Someone was looking into her. Someone dangerous. He returned to the living room, gaze drifting over her sleeping form, her face soft for the first time since he'd found her outside the hospital. The thought of her being pulled into his battles made something fierce ignite inside him. She had suffered enough. More than enough. He would not let her suffer because of him. But Victor's warnings echoed like thunder. Someone already dug into your personal records. And they found a name. Who? A corporate rival? A disgruntled investor? Or? His chest tightened. Someone Derek had reached out to in desperation? He needed answers. Now. Elias grabbed his coat, preparing to step out, but then he paused, returning to the couch. Gently, he placed a handwritten note on the coffee table. I'll be back soon. You're safe here, always. He hesitated, just long enough to look at Madeline one more time. She had changed something inside him. Something he wasn't ready to confront yet, but the instinct to protect her was bone deep, undeniable. He left silently. Back downstairs, the doorman stiffened. Mr. Whitmore, that man from last night, he's still outside. Elias's eyes narrowed. Derek? Yes, sir. He's been pacing for hours. Elias didn't break stride. He exited the building. Derek spun around, eyes bloodshot, expression unraveling. Whitmore, we need to talk. Elias stepped forward, his voice cold. You're leaving. Right now. But Derek shook his head wildly. No, you don't get it. I gotta call someone asking about Maddie. Someone dangerous. Elias froze. Derek's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. They know she's with you. And they're coming. And suddenly, the threat was no longer just emotional. It was real and moving straight toward Madeline. Madeline woke to the soft cry of her newborn and the faintest glow of morning spreading across the penthouse ceiling. For a moment, everything felt dreamlike. The warmth, the safety, the silence. It was the first time in months she hadn't woken to Derek yelling or to bills piled on her chest like concrete. Then she noticed the note on the coffee table. Elias's handwriting, neat and steady. I'll return soon. You and your son are safe here. Safe. The word carried more comfort than she expected, yet also a flicker of confusion. Why would Elias think she wasn't safe? She rubbed her eyes and stood, moving slowly toward the bassinet. The baby blinked up at her, a soft sigh leaving his lips. She kissed his forehead, then reached for her phone, expecting messages from Derek or the hospital. Instead, she found something she couldn't explain. A notification she had never seen before. Suspicious account activity review required. Her heart skipped. She tapped it open, and what she saw made her blood run cold. Multiple accounts. Loans she never took. Credit cards she never opened. A massive outstanding balance tied directly to her social security number. No, she breathed, her stomach twisting. She scrolled faster, dread building with each line. Transaction history showed purchases Derek would make sports betting apps, luxury electronics, transfers labeled private expenses. Then she found the worst part. A document with her electronic signature. A signature she did not sign. Shaking violently, Madeline clicked the download link. Her forged signature was at the bottom of a loan agreement worth enough money to ruin her life several times over. A wave of nausea surged through her. He did this, she whispered. Derek, he really did this. But it wasn't only Derek. Attached to the file was a red flag warning. Requested by Hall and Morgan Holdings. She frowned, unfamiliar with the name. Even so, the pit in her stomach deepened. The hospital incident. The discharge papers. The rushed signature. The unease in Elias's expression before he left. Everything suddenly felt connected and far more dangerous than just Derek's recklessness. Her hands trembling, she opened the penthouse laptop on the dining table, searching the company name. The first headline made her heart stop. Hall and Morgan, under federal investigation, ties to corporate fraud and cyber leaks. And beneath it, former Whitmore Industries partner among those investigated. Former partner. Whitmore. Her pulse spiked painfully. Elias. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. This meant someone connected to that world, corporate espionage, power struggles, money trails, had somehow tied her to Elias. And if Derek had been contacted, oh God, someone knew she was here. She closed the laptop, fear tightening like a vice around her throat. The baby began fussing again, picking up on her panic. Madeline picked him up, holding him close, whispering soft reassurances she wasn't sure she believed. A sharp knock suddenly echoed through the penthouse. Madeline froze. Not a buzzer from the lobby, not the doorman calling up. A knock right at the penthouse door. Her breath caught. "Elias?" she called cautiously. No answer. Another knock. Harder this time. Her heart pounded against her ribs. She backed away, clutching her son, every nerve in her body screaming danger. Then, a voice on the other side of the door, low and unfamiliar. "Miss Rhodes, we need to speak with you. It's urgent." Everything inside her went still, because whoever was outside her door, they didn't sound like someone sent by Elias. Madeline's breath hitched as the knock echoed again, slow, firm, deliberate. Her newborn whimpered in her arms, sensing the tension vibrating through her body. She held him tighter, stepping backward until her back pressed against the cool marble wall. "Miss Rhodes," the voice repeated. "Please open the door. We're here on behalf of Hall and Morgan Holdings." Her blood turned to ice. Hall and Morgan. The same name she'd just discovered tied to fraudulent financial schemes. The same name tangled with Elias's past partner, the same partner who had left frantic voicemail warnings. "No," she whispered. "This can't be happening." Another knock. This one louder, sharper, more impatient. She moved toward the kitchen, grabbing her phone with trembling hands. She dialed Elias immediately, straight to voicemail. Her heart hammered. "Please," she whispered to the empty room. "Pick up," but he didn't. She tried again. Still nothing. The baby began to cry louder now, the sound slicing through the panic like shattered glass. Madeline rocked him desperately, her voice trembling. "It's okay, sweetheart. Mama's here. Mama's here. If you go." A heavy shadow shifted beneath the penthouse door. "Miss Rhodes," the man called out again. "If you don't cooperate, we have authorization to escalate the visit." Visit, authorization, escalate. These were not words used by people coming to talk. Madeline's breath came in short, uneven bursts. She scanned the room for any kind of escape, but the penthouse was 70 stories in the air. There were no fire escapes, no back staircases, just the front door, the elevator, the windows, and the windows didn't open. Her eyes darted to the security keypad near the entryway. She recognized the model she'd seen it used in secure medical wards. One button stood out, panic protocol fire, police dispatch. But pressing it would bring security. And security meant people. And people meant Derek might find out. Or Hall and Morgan. Or whoever else was now digging into her life. Before she could decide, the elevator chimed soft, familiar, grounding. Then the doors slid open. Elias stepped out. Relief broke through her panic so sharply she nearly cried. But the moment he saw the fear in her eyes and the shadow at the door, his entire expression changed. Calm vanished. Steele replaced it. "Who is that?" he asked, voice low. "They said they're from Hall and Morgan," Madeline whispered. "They knocked. They knew my name. They knew I was here." Elias moved instantly, placing himself between her and the door. "Don't worry. You're safe now. Thank you for watching. The Billionaire Cell." "Elias, they said they have authorization." "What does that mean?" "It means they're lying," he said tightly, "and it means Victor has already lost control of something bigger than I thought." The knocking resumed harder this time. Elias's jaw tightened. "Stay back." He approached the door, looked through the peephole, and swore under his breath. He didn't open it. He didn't speak to the men outside. Instead, he pressed the intercom. "This is Whitmore," he said sharply. "You are trespassing on private property. Leave now." A pause. Then the voice replied, "Mr. Whitmore, we're actually here for you as well." Elias froze. Madeline felt the air leave her lungs. The man continued, tone colder now. "We know you're protecting her, and that means you're interfering with an active investigation." Her heart plummeted. An investigation? Interfering? What did that even mean? Elias stepped back, his expression darker than she had ever seen it. "We need to talk," he said quietly to Madeline, urgency vibrating beneath every word. "There's something you don't know about Victor, About Hall and Morgan, about why they're after you. Madeline's pulse thundered. Why me, Elias? He turned toward her, slowly. Because your name was used in something far bigger than Derek's fraud, and now they think you're involved. Madeline felt the room tilt as Elias's words settled over her like a suffocating blanket. They think you're involved. Her? A woman who had barely survived the last 48 hours? A woman who didn't even have enough money to buy a winter coat? She shook her head, clutching her baby protectively. This has to be a mistake, some kind of mix-up. I don't even know what Hall and Morgan really is. Elias exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. It's not a mix-up. Victor used shell identities during the acquisition, names that couldn't be traced back to him. None. And mine somehow ended up in one of them? She whispered, horrified. It looks that way. But how? Why me? Elias hesitated long enough for fear to knot deep in her gut. Because the night you saved me, he said quietly, you signed paperwork at the hospital, a witness form. Your name became part of my medical file, and Victor, he hacked it months later. He used names connected to me to build his cover. Madeline staggered back a step. So, that was it. One act of kindness. One small, human moment. And she had unknowingly stepped into the crosshairs of a corporate war. I didn't do anything wrong, she whispered shakily. I know, Elias said, but they don't, and they're not here for justice, they're here for leverage. Her pulse thundered. Suddenly, the intercom buzzed again, sharp, impatient. Mr. Whitmore, the cold voice said, we won't ask again. If you don't open this door, we will escalate. Madeline's breath quickened. What does that mean? Break it down? No, Elias said, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. They wouldn't risk legal consequences, but they will try to intimidate us. He stepped closer to her, lowering his voice. Madeline, listen to me. They don't believe you're guilty, not really. They just want pressure. And right now, you are the closest pressure point to me. Her stomach twisted painfully. So I'm a target because of you? No, he said firmly. You're a target because Victor used you. And now these men think your signature, your name, could be a key to unraveling the fraud. As if the situation weren't already unbearable. A sudden buzz from Madeline's phone made her jump. She glanced down and froze. It was Derek. A text message. They came to my work. They questioned me about you. If you don't fix this, we're both screwed. A second message arrived immediately after. If you think Whitmore can protect you, you're wrong. They know where you are. Madeline's breath caught in her throat. Elias, they already talked to Derek. Elias's expression darkened like a gathering storm. Then they're moving faster than I thought. Another knock thundered through the door, harder than before this time, accompanied by a second, deeper voice. Open the door, Whitmore. Madeline flinched violently. Elias turned toward her, resolve hardening. Get your things. We're leaving. Leaving? She echoed. Where? Somewhere they can't follow. She shook her head, panicked. Elias, I can't run forever. You won't, he interrupted. You just need to survive long enough for me to fix what Victor broke. The knocking continued, relentless now. Madeline held her baby close, fear clawing at her chest, but beneath it, something else flickered. Anger. Injustice. Determination she didn't know she had. She wasn't the helpless girl Derek abandoned anymore. But as she took a shaky step toward Elias, the doorknob suddenly rattled, and the voice outside growled, We know she's inside. Madeline Rhodes, you're not walking away from this. Her blood turned to ice, because they weren't after Elias anymore. They were after her. Madeline had never seen anyone move with the speed and precision Elias did in that moment. 1 second he was facing the door, jaw clenched, assessing danger. The next, he'd crossed the room, pulled out a slim black case from a locked drawer, and typed something rapidly into a secured tablet. Elias, she whispered, what are you doing? Locking down the building systems, he said without looking up. They won't get through the door, but we only have a few minutes before they try something else. Her heart raced, but then something shifted inside her. For the first time since this nightmare began, she wasn't only afraid, she was angry. So deeply angry that it steadied her. Derek had destroyed her finances. Victor had stolen her name. Hall and Morgan had turned her life upside down. And she was done being the victim of other people's decisions. Tell me what to do, Madeline said, lifting her chin. Elias paused, surprised. Then he nodded once. We need to move fast. If they're escalating, they're after information tied to you. That means they won't stop. He guided her into the master suite, modern, spacious, a soft glow of morning light washing over polished wood and silk textures. It felt impossibly luxurious, yet this time, she didn't shrink from it. He opened a wardrobe and pulled out clothes, nothing flashy, but elegant and strong. Black fitted pants, a simple cream sweater, and a long, structured coat. She stared at them. These are too nice. You need to look like someone who can't be intimidated, he said. Every threat they make depends on you being scared. Her baby slept in the bassinet beside the bed, swaddled in soft blankets. Madeline brushed a hand over his cheek, then faced the mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back, pale, exhausted, eyes rimmed with fear. No, not fear anymore. Fire. She changed quickly, pulling her hair back into a loose, clean bun. Elias stood at the doorway, not staring, not rushing her, simply ready. You look stronger, he said. The words hit deeper than she expected. He handed her a slim leather folder. Everything Derek forged. The documents he tried to make you sign. Proof of fraud. You'll need this. Need it for what? Protection. And leverage. Leverage. The word tasted foreign on her tongue, but powerful. She took the folder, tucking it into the inner pocket of her coat. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere they can't touch you, Elias said. My legal team is already on standby. To show. To show. Everyone. Suddenly, a deep metallic thud echoed from the hallway. Madeline flinched. What was that? Elias moved instantly toward the living room, checking the security feed. Madeline followed closely behind him, pulse racing. On the screen, 2 men in dark coats stood outside the penthouse door. One of them held a device she didn't recognize, something metallic with blinking lights. What are they doing? She whispered. Trying to override the lock, Elias said tightly. They came prepared. And Ezrapom's. Her stomach twisted. But that's illegal, isn't it? It is, Elias said. But people who want power don't worry about laws. They worry about what they can get away with. The man outside lifted the device again. Another harsh thud slammed into the door. Madeline's breath hitched. Elias, they're actually trying to break in. He grabbed her hand, not romantically, but firmly, decisively. We leave now. She nodded, adrenaline flooding her limbs. But just as they approached the private elevator, Elias froze at the security screen, his eyes narrowing. A third man had stepped out of the opposite corridor. Not Hall and Morgan. Not security. Someone else. Someone familiar? Madeline's breath stopped when she recognized him. Derek inside the building, walking toward the penthouse. Derek wasn't supposed to be inside the building. Not with the security lockdown Elias had triggered. Not with 2 corporate enforcers already trying to override the penthouse door. Yet there he was, appearing on the security monitor like a ghost from a nightmare that refused to stay buried. Madeline's breath seized. How did he get in? Elias's expression hardened. He must have followed another resident inside, or paid someone to look the other way. Derek moved quickly down the hallway, his eyes wild, his steps frantic. He wasn't here to apologize. He wasn't here to beg. He was here because his world was falling apart, and he believed dragging Madeline down with him was the only way to survive. We need to go, Elias said, pulling her gently toward the elevator panel. If we move fast, we can get downstairs before. A loud metallic crack shook the penthouse door. The men outside were nearly through the reinforced lock. Madeline jumped. Her baby stirred in her arms, fussing at the sudden noise. Elias, we can't go out there, she whispered. If Derek sees us, he won't get near you, Elias promised. I'll handle him. Another sharp crack, then a hiss of air. The lock was failing. Madeline clutched her baby to her chest. Her heart slammed painfully against her ribs. What do they even want with me? Your signature. Access. Leverage, Elias said. Victor used your name illegally. If Hall and Morgan confirms it, they'll try to force you to cooperate. You're the loose thread that could unravel their entire cover. End quote. But I didn't choose any of this. I know. His voice dropped. You were dragged into a world that feeds on people like you. People who trust, who help, who never imagine their kindness can be weaponized. A deep, metallic groan echoed through the penthouse. The doorframe was bending. Elias pulled her toward the emergency stairwell hidden behind a sliding wall. "We go down the service route. Security will meet us in the garage." End quote. But as the panel slid open, the hallway camera blinked again. Derek had reached the final corner, and the moment he turned, he saw the penthouse door and the men tearing into it. His expression twisted with terror. "Oh God," Madeline breathed. "He knows them?" Elias stared at the screen. "No, he's afraid of them." Derek stepped backward, nearly stumbling. He wasn't aligned with Hall and Morgan. He was running from them too, and that made him dangerous. Elias motioned her forward. "Go. Now." But just as they stepped into the stairwell, the intercom buzzed. Not from the men at the door, not from security, not from Derek. A different voice. Calm, controlled, chillingly confident. "Elias Whitmore," it said. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. Let the girl come with us." She signs the documents, and everyone walks away unharmed. Madeline froze. The voice continued. "We know she's innocent, but innocence doesn't matter. Her signature does. Thanks for watching. If you're not side of conference and related." Elias's grip tightened protectively around her arm. Madeline whispered, "They'll take my baby." "No," Elias said fiercely. "They won't touch either of you." The men outside began counting down. 3, 2, 1. A final metallic crack exploded through the penthouse. The door was seconds from collapsing. Madeline's legs trembled, adrenaline flooding her veins. Elias pulled her into the stairwell, slamming the hidden door behind them. But before it fully closed, Madeline saw it. Derek turning toward the penthouse and sprinting straight for them. The stairwell echoed with the frantic rhythm of footsteps, Elias guiding Madeline downward, while Derek's pounding steps chased after them from above. The sound bounced off the cold concrete walls, each impact tightening the knot in Madeline's chest. "Elias," she whispered, breathless. "He's getting closer." "Don't look back," Elias said firmly. "Keep moving." Experience. But she did look back, and she saw Derek wild-eyed, sweating, desperation dripping off him like oil barreling down the steps. "Maddie, wait," he yelled. "You have to listen to me if you leave. We're both dead." Her stomach knotted. "Derek, stay away." He stumbled, nearly falling down a flight, then caught himself on the railing. "They questioned me," he shouted. "Hall and Morgan, those guys, they think I helped Victor. They think you did too. They're going to pin it on us." Esco. Elias stopped short on the landing and turned sharply. "You helped Victor commit fraud," he said. "You forged her signature. You did help him." Derek shook his head violently. "I didn't know what Victor was doing. I just signed what he gave me. But now they think I'm part of it, and they're coming for all of us." A deep boom sounded from the penthouse levels above. The men had breached the door. Madeline flinched. "They're through," Elias said. "Move." They raced down another flight. Derek followed, panting, voice cracking. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. Maddie, you gotta believe me. I just needed money." Victor said her name was clean. He said no one would ever trace it back. Madeline spun, fury slicing through her fear. "You stole my identity. You ruined my credit. You left me in the snow after childbirth. You don't get to ask for forgiveness now." Derek's face twisted, not in remorse, but in panic. "You don't get it. If they think you can expose them, they'll kill you for it. They'll kill all of us." "Not if we expose the truth first," Elias said coldly. "I already forwarded the documents to an investigative team outside New York. By now, Hall and Morgan can't erase anything." Derek paled. What did you do?" Elias didn't answer. He simply moved faster. They burst through the stairwell exit into the underground garage. The space was dim, echoing, filled with the faint smell of gasoline. Elias's security team, 3 men in black suits, rushed toward them. "Sir," one said, "the situation upstairs is escalating. We have surveillance showing 2 enforcers and an unidentified party breaching the penthouse." "Derek," Elias said. "That's the 3rd. The guards seized Derek immediately. He yelped, struggling. "Hey, no, wait. I'm trying to help." Madeline almost laughed at the absurdity of that sentence. After everything he'd done, now he wanted to pretend he was saving her? The baby began crying, overwhelmed by the chaos. A guard opened the back door of a sleek black Mercedes. "Ma'am, please get in." Madeline hesitated. For the first time, the garage lights illuminated the folder sticking out of her coat. The evidence. her justice, her voice. Elias placed a hand over hers. We can protect you, but you need to decide if you want to run or fight. If you take 7, Madeline looked down at her son, the tiny life depending on her strength, her courage, her truth. Her jaw set. I'm done running, she said quietly. Elias's eyes softened a hint of pride, a hint of something more. Then we take this public, he said. We expose everything Derek and Victor did, and we do it where they can't twist it. Derek screamed, No, don't do this. You'll destroy me. Madeline met his eyes calm for the first time. You already destroyed yourself. End quote. The security team ushered her toward the car. But then, a loud screech echoed across the garage. A second car slammed into view from the ramp above. A black SUV. Its doors flew open, and 2 armed men stepped out. Hall and Morgan had found them. The shriek of tires tore through the underground garage, jarring and violent. Madeline instinctively shielded her baby as the black SUV fishtailed into view, its headlights slicing through the dim concrete space like blades. Elias's security team moved instantly, 2 men stepping in front of Madeline, another pushing Derek behind a pillar. The SUV doors swung open. 2 men in dark jackets stepped out, their movements rigid, trained. These weren't debt collectors. They weren't hired thugs. They were something far more dangerous. Miss Rhodes, one of them barked. We need you to come with us, now. Madeline's pulse thundered. No, stay away from me. The second man held up a tablet. Your signature appears on fraudulent acquisition documents. You're needed for immediate questioning. Elias stepped forward, jaw clenched. Her signature was forged. You know that. You're using intimidation because you don't have legal grounds. The first man smirked. Legal grounds are irrelevant at this stage. Elias moved slightly, positioning himself between them and Madeline. You're not taking her anywhere. We're not negotiating with you, Whitmore, the man replied. Move. Raffidijus, in leaks livode. Elias didn't. The tension snapped like a wire pulled too tight. One of the men reached into his coat. Security reacted instantly. Stand down, Elias commanded, raising a hand just enough to stop his guards from escalating too fast. They want leverage, not violence. They won't risk a public incident. The first man stepped forward, voice dropping into a cold, clipped tone. You don't seem to understand the urgency. Your partner stole millions from Hall and Morgan. If we don't secure Miss Rhodes, this entire investigation collapses. She is not involved, Elias barked. But she can prove you were. Madeline froze. Prove. Elias was what? She whispered. Elias flinched just barely, the smallest crack in his composure. The man smiled. Oh, he didn't tell you. Madeline's breath hitched. Elias, what is he talking about? Elias's voice was steady, but his eyes reflected something deeper, something heavy with buried truth. Madeline, whatever they say, listen to me. You are not responsible for anything Victor did. That's not what we asked, the man said. He turned to her. Did Mr. Whitmore tell you he approved the partnership Victor used? That he signed off on the system Victor later hacked? That the stolen identities, including yours, were tied to his authorization? Madeline's knees weakened. That's not true, is it? Elias inhaled, a slow, pained breath. It's more complicated than that. The man pressed on. To protect his company, he needs a scapegoat. Someone innocent, someone believable, someone who can disappear quietly. Madeline felt the world tilt beneath her. That's enough, Elias snapped. She's not part of this. Maybe not, the man said, but she's your weak spot, and that makes her our strongest leverage. The words punched through her chest. Derek, still held behind the pillar, shouted, See? Maddie, I told you. You're in this because of him, not me. Inives. Madeline's breath stuttered. Tears burned behind her eyes, but not from fear. From betrayal, she didn't want to believe. Elias turned sharply toward her, urgency flooding his voice. Madeline, don't listen to them. Victor used my credentials, but I never put you in danger. Then why didn't you tell me? She whispered. He stepped closer. Because I didn't want you to feel responsible for something you did not cause. The guards tensed as the men advanced again. Enough, the lead enforcer said. She comes with us now. Madeline backed up. I'm not going anywhere. You don't have a choice. Yes, Elias said, stepping fully in front of her. She does. It was the spark before an explosion. The man raised his hand. Security reached for their weapons. Derek screamed. The baby wailed. And then, the elevator doors behind them suddenly opened, revealing someone none of them expected to see. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime that cut through the chaos like a blade. Everyone turned, and out stepped Victor Hall. But this wasn't the smooth, calculated businessman the news loved to photograph. His suit was wrinkled, his expression frantic, his eyes red from sleeplessness. Sweat clung to his collar as if he had sprinted the entire way. The Hall and Morgan enforcers stiffened instantly. "Sir," the lead one said, "you're not supposed to." "Shut up," Victor snapped, his voice cracking under pressure. "All of you, stand down." The men hesitated, uncertain. Victor's gaze swung wildly until it landed on Madeline. He pointed a trembling finger at her. You're the one they want. Not because you're guilty, but because you can expose the whole damn thing." Madeline swallowed, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. Elias stepped protectively in front of her. "Don't talk to her." "And Wensids," Victor barked a humorless laugh. "What's the point of protecting her when your name is all over the stolen contracts, Whitmore? When your approval codes were used in the system breach?" Madeline felt her chest tighten again. The men in dark coats straightened, reassured by Victor's presence. "Miss Rhodes," one said firmly, "come with us. We have documentation proving you were tied to Victor's operation." Victor spun on him. "She didn't know, you idiot. She didn't sign anything. I stole her identity because she was convenient." "Victor Hall, I am responsible." A stunned silence filled the garage. Madeline stared at him, shock rippling through her. You admit it?" she whispered. Victor scrubbed both hands over his face. "I didn't mean for this to get this big. I thought Whitmore's name attached to a few dummy accounts would scare off the auditors. I never thought they'd track it back to you." Elias stepped forward, fury simmering beneath the surface. "Then why drag her into it at all?" Victor's voice cracked. "Because she saved you that night, Elias. And the system flagged her name in your file. I assumed she was someone important to you." Madeline flinched. Elias's jaw tightened. "She is important. Exactly why you should have stayed as far away from her as possible." Victor turned to her again, desperation creeping into his tone. "I'm trying to fix it. If you come with me—" "No," Madeline said, her voice steady for the first time. "I'm done cleaning up messes men make." The enforcers stepped toward her, but Victor lifted an arm. "Stop, she's not your target. I am." The lead enforcer's smirk returned. "We need them both." Elias stepped forward, his voice a quiet storm. "You're not taking anyone." Madeline felt her pulse shift, not fear this time, but a deep, growing strength. "Wait," she said, raising her voice. Everyone looked at her. She pulled the leather folder from her coat, the evidence she'd carried from the penthouse. "You all keep acting like I'm powerless," she said, her voice ringing across the garage. "Like I'm something to use, or scare, or drag around. But I have every forged document, every piece of proof tying Victor and Derek to the fraud. And I have already shared it." The lead enforcer frowned. "Shared with who?" Madeline held her baby close, her chin lifting. "The press." Elias's eyes widened. Victor paled. Derek let out a strangled noise behind the pillar. A sharp ping echoed from someone's phone. Then another. And another. One of the enforcers checked his screen, confusion etching across his face. The headline flashed large enough for all of them to see. "Identity fraud scandal unfolds, names leaked from inside Hall and Morgan." Victor stumbled back. "No, no, no, no." Madeline exhaled slowly. For the first time, the power shifted. But before anyone could react to the news alert, the garage gate screeched open. A flood of flashing lights poured in. Police cars, dozens of them, racing straight toward them. Sirens echoed through the underground garage as police cars flooded in, their blue and red lights splashing across concrete pillars like waves of justice finally breaking free. Officers poured out, some with badges raised, others already scanning faces, matching identities to the leaked documents, now blowing up across every news outlet in Manhattan. Hall and Morgan's enforcers froze. Victor Hall stumbled backward, the color draining from his face. Derek sagged against the pillar, shaking, sweat dripping down his forehead. And Madeline, standing in the center of it all with her baby in her arms, felt the air shift around her. For once, she wasn't the one cornered. She wasn't the one afraid. She wasn't the one being blamed. She was the one holding the truth. A senior officer approached, flanked by two others. "Miss Rhodes, we've received your evidence. You did the right thing coming forward." Madeline swallowed, nodding. "Please, be careful. They were trying to take me." "Not anymore," the officer said. "You're under our protection now." He turned sharply toward the enforcers. "Drop the devices and step away from the vehicle." End quote. Different. They obeyed slowly, reluctantly. Another group of officers surrounded Victor. "Victor Hall," one announced. "You are under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to obstruct federal investigation." Victor didn't fight. His shoulders collapsed inward, and for the first time, he looked small. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he whispered weakly. "That's what they all say," the officer replied. Then came Derek. He tried to slip behind a patrol car, but two officers grabbed him immediately. "No, wait," Derek shrieked. "This isn't my fault. Victor dragged me into this. She was supposed to help me." Madeline didn't flinch. For years, Derek had twisted blame like a weapon. Today, the blade turned on him. One officer cuffed him. "Derek Langford, you're being arrested for identity fraud, forged signatures, and financial abuse." Derek's voice cracked as he looked at Madeline. "Maddie, please, don't let them take me." She met his eyes calmly. "I already did everything I could for you, and you threw it away." He stopped fighting then, because for the first time, he understood. Madeline didn't belong to his world anymore, and she never would again. Elias stepped beside her, his presence steady, grounding. "It's over," he murmured. Madeline felt tears gather not from fear this time, but from relief so deep it almost ached. "Is it?" she whispered. "Yes," Elias said softly. "You ended it." Paramedics checked her and the baby, confirming both were safe. Officers took statements. Reporters gathered outside the garage entrance as news alerts continued exploding across screens. The story was everywhere. Whitmore whistleblower identified single mother exposes fraud ring. But when asked to speak to the press, Madeline simply said, "I just told the truth." Later, back inside the penthouse, the chaos finally quieted. Elias stood near the windows, watching her gently rock her son. His voice was low, filled with emotion he didn't try to hide anymore. "Madeline, there's something I want to ask you." She turned, heart fluttering. He stepped closer. "I want you and your son to stay, not because you need shelter, but because you deserve a home, a real one. And because his voice faltered for the first time. "I care for you, more than I expected, more than I can ignore." Madeline's breath caught. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't pity. This wasn't saving her. This was love, gentle, steady, earned. She stepped closer. "Elias, we've both survived enough lies. I want something real too." He exhaled, relief washing over him. "Then stay. With me, with us. Let's build something new." Madeline smiled through tears. "I'd like that." Outside, Manhattan glittered, not cold or distant anymore, but full of possibility. For the first time, her life wasn't falling apart. It was beginning. And as Elias wrapped an arm around her and the baby stirred softly between them, Madeline Rhodes knew with absolute certainty she had finally found a place where she belonged. You know, now that our story has come to an end, I just want to pause for a moment and talk to you. Yes, you, the wonderful friend still watching right now. If you're still here, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a real way. Maybe it reminded you of your own battles, the moments you stood back up when the world felt too heavy. And that's the beauty of life, isn't it? Like the Stoic Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle is the way. What tries to break us often becomes the very thing that shapes us." Madeline survived betrayal, fear, and injustice, but she also discovered her strength, her voice, and her worth. And you can too. No matter what your past looks like, you have the power to choose who you become next. If this story made you feel a little less alone, or helped you see your own resilience more clearly, do me a small favor. Give this video a like, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next journey we take together. We're here for you. And your story isn't finished yet.